Well, hello, world, and welcome to another episode of the Crisis Victory Show. Tonight, I'm so excited to have Lisa Drennan on the show. Lisa was our very first episode. She was the maiden voyage of the Crisis Victory Show. Hi, Lisa. How you doing, darling?
I'm fantastic. Thank you. How are you?
Oh, I'm always good, dear. It's so good to have you back again, and thank you for coming back.
Yeah, good to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, what I want to do tonight is I want to show the world that sees our show that people such as ourselves who are crisis victory survivors, after we go through that which we had put ourselves through in younger years or whatever period of life that you started going through the hardships, if you will, that you had been confronted with, to where you're at today. It's so important for people like you and me to show the world that people like you and me can in fact crawl out of the world of sin, the world of horror, if you will, and take that knowledge and take that benefit of having experienced these things and show the world where we're at today, that we might encourage others to take the same path.
Absolutely.
Oh, I just love you, Lisa. I'm so happy to see you. You are in my heart and have been for years.
Thank you. Likewise.
Well, I am your sidekick pastor.
I've got that
right? Yeah. Okay, well, let's get it started. Lisa, I want you to do, if you wouldn't mind, a short run back of what you came out of, what you experienced. And then I want to filter in and focus mainly today on what you're doing with all of that knowledge.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
So my story begins as a very, very small child. I would have to say my first memory of a traumatic experience would have been basically early grade school. The first time I spent the night at, say, a neighbor kid's house or something. I grew up in a neighborhood that was full. I can remember off the top of my head at least 4 pedophiles, literally within a 2-block radius. My kindergarten. One of my kindergarten best friends, older sister, a couple years older than us, was pregnant by their father. The neighbor boys next door, the high school kids down the street, the old man across the way in the alley, handing out candy and cigarettes to touch children, things of that nature. So very early on, things were happening to me that I, number one, did not understand. And for 2, was very afraid to tell.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And I don't remember any coercion as far as don't tell from the other individual, but it was me knowing my father, you know what I mean? And knowing that my father was important. And if I were to tell him this, bad things would happen. And I didn't understand what those were.
That's a normal pattern of a victim, excuse me.
Yeah. Especially a child, we don't understand these things, and we don't know we don't have the emotional capacity to comprehend what is going on or express it in a healthy manner. Needless to say, I acted out a lot. I was in trouble all the time, like literally all the time. And that grew into other issues, addiction, cigarettes, drug addiction, experimenting, either with my parents' knowledge or without, with other neighbors. We all of my friends had high school brothers and sisters, and they were all into doing these things. And so we would fall into that, and were not always lured in, but always wanted to be part of it. Right. We wanted to be grown up. We wanted to do all these things. Right. So
you wanted to belong.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Definitely got into active use with my adults at a very early age. I would have to say early grade school as well. Later, a little bit later, like 4th, 5th grade, 6th grade. By the time I was in 6th grade, I was definitely like buying my own cigarettes, buying my own weed, buying, I always had older friends who had older friends. And so alcohol was never an issue to find. I can remember literally buying my own cigarettes at 55 cents a pack. So that kind of gives you a time frame, a very long time ago, like literally a lifetime ago. This would have been, say, mid 70s, late 70s. You know what I mean? So that being said, my family unit kind of crumbled right around that same time, about middle school age. By the time I was 12 or 13 years old, my parents were divorcing. And my mother became addicted to cocaine, IV drug use, and
what era was that now?
that would have been late 70s, very early 80s. Yeah. I graduated in 1984 with a GED my junior year. So this would have had to have been 81, 80, something like that. Right around the time Mount St. Helens blew up, my parents were divorced. I remember that also. I remember that event very well.
So do I. I was on I-5 watching the dust come down.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, how crazy.
Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting life. So that translated into very early relationships. I became a teenage mom at 15, and I was pregnant with my second pregnancy at that time. And that kind of really stopped a lot of my drinking. I did continue marijuana use. I did continue to smoke cigarettes. I moved out of my mother's house on several occasions because of the lack of attention, the lack of parenting, the abusive situations. It was just an unhealthy environment, right? And I knew right away. I actually put myself into a foster home at I think 12 or 13 years old. Wow. Temporarily. That kind of fizzled out because of ongoing behaviors of mine. Take full responsibility for that these days. So, they kind of walked into a situation they were not aware of. I mean, like in my family unit, it was like whatever happens at home stays at home. Typical Gen X behavior, right? Mindset in that era.
Absolutely right.
I mean, there was no such thing as safe words. There was no such thing as, what I'm saying, seatbelts. There was no such thing as all of these things that we see today, right? So Gen X is definitely an entire different way of life, right? So that I had my baby at 15 and immediately realized that I needed to get a job, and I didn't have time for school, which, I mean, I didn't really attend much anyway. I didn't have anyone to tell me you need to go to school. I was in an alternative school. That translated into another pregnancy around 18 years old. I think just before I turned 19 with my second child. With another person, a different relationship, extremely abusive relationship. That already was my set pattern, like that early, before I was even 20 years old. My pattern was addiction and abusive relationships.
So let me ask you something real quick here at this point. After the birth of the second child, would you consider that you were in an abusive relationship as a matter of recognition, and it was comfortable to you because of recognizing the situation that you're in? A lot of people that I've talked to in my doctoral way of counseling people, they tend to go back into relationships that are abusive because they're familiar. That makes them comfortable. Was that the case with you, Lisa?
I think it was more along the lines as I didn't have a good understanding of what a healthy relationship looked like.
Right.
I mean, like if you're considering like all the way going back to early childhood, like none of the families in my neighborhood were healthy, right? So, and the relationships that I had with adults was not healthy. And
so it was familiar.
It was just the way life was. I didn't know there was a difference, right? And in all honesty, I was well into my adulthood with full-grown adult children and grandchildren before I really got to a space in my life where I was able to learn from that, to tell the difference.
Yeah,
like literally, it's still something I struggle with today. And I'm.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, I'm almost 58. You know what I'm saying? So that and that also ties into the fact that everything that a child experiences within the first several years of their life, would say up to 7 years old, it will map out pretty much the rest of their life. And it is because we are we are products of our environment.
Exactly. I agree.
So that being said, I grew up thinking that it was okay to, I thought people were weird if they weren't getting high or drunk with their parents. I thought it was really weird if they weren't having, sexual activities of any kind with grown adults. You know what I mean? I thought it was weird if people,
I do.
Know what I mean? And so like my entire viewpoint, my perspective was skewed from the beginning. I do have some limited, I did have some limited perspective of healthy relationships. They just weren't prevalent enough in my life at that age or any time in that time frame to really have an impact. I can honestly say that the foster parents that I put myself into when I was, I think, 12 or 13, they are my godparents today. I've known their daughter.
Wonderful.
I've known them since I was in kindergarten, and they are my shining example of how to do a relationship right. Like, they literally are just, they're beautiful people. They're still married, high school sweethearts, etc. And so on and so forth.
So you're saying then that was a safe area for you, a safe environment at that time in your life.
It was, but they were not prepared for the damage that I came with. They didn't have a clue. No one did. I mean, like, literally no one did, because I didn't even tell my parents what was going on with me half the time, right? Or the majority of the time.
Of course.
So, so moving on, my third child, I think I was 21, or just before. It was either just before, I think it would have been, let me see, he was born in August. So it would have been after I turned 21 when my son Daniel was born. Still in the relationship with my second child's father. So those two boys have the same father. Working at McDonald's, I had already begun some of the trafficking. I wasn't technically turning tricks. I was actually robbing people.
So we're talking about sex. This is when you were introduced to sex trafficking.
Right around the age of, I'd have to say 20.
For profit.
I would have to say 20. It was, the seed was planted when I was 15, when I had the first baby, my oldest. And then it came to fruition during the struggle of having two children. And then really solidified after the third, because, like, literally at that time I was working at McDonald's at $5.25 an hour. I couldn't afford the babysitter and rent. Right. I mean, like, literally I couldn't even afford to live. Right. It became extremely impoverished and resorted to alternate methods of income. Right. That choice was in the moment, I would have to say it was a very easy choice, because I just could not, in my soul, I could not continue to look at my children with tears in their eyes, begging me for something to eat and having nothing, like literally nothing to feed them. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to have to go do this for real now, because this is not, I can't do this anymore. Right.
Totally understandable. It's something that it was familiar to you. And that's why I keep bringing up familiarity. This pattern starts and develops when they're very, very young. As you were saying, by the time they're 7 years of age, a person is 7, already the foundation of how they're going to approach life is pretty well instituted. And in your case, with young abuse, it's starting so early. This was familiar. And so it's very understandable, Lisa, that at the point where you came into an area of desperation, that this was probably the only recourse that you felt, being familiar with that, to enter into. Please.
Well, I knew somewhere, I knew that somebody somewhere out there in the world would want to give me what I needed in return for whatever it is they wanted. Right. And
exactly. Exactly.
And so the transactional relationships really, really took root. And that literally has been a curse until this day. I still, like I said, I still struggle with the healthy boundaries in the relationships. I still struggle with the selection process. Like, literally 6 months ago, I took a vow of celibacy until God himself sits down on my bed and says, hey, my homeboy wants to talk to you. You know what
Amen.
I mean? Like, literally.
Amen, sister. It just shows it's never too late, huh? Never too late.
You know what I'm saying? It's like I was taught to never need a man for anything other than procreation and, of course, finances. That has haunted me as well, because I'm viewed by the opposite sex as being too independent or too something. I'm either too much or not enough. You know what I'm saying?
Not to this man. Your family, Lisa. You're my family.
It takes someone like us to really understand someone like me or you. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like, exactly. we have to be forged in the chaos and darkness in order to become the light. We have to be able to transmute the light and alchemize the trauma and to become who we are today. And so after, sorry, my light automatically turns off. So I hope you still get in the light. No. So
you look fine, sister. You look fine.
I was just teasing. So, and that, that also ties into like I would refuse to leave my house without my hair and my makeup done. And, it didn't matter what I was wearing, but I had to have my hair and makeup done. And I refused to, do, I didn't, although I craved deep down, always craved longevity in a relationship. I knew that I was just always waiting for that ball to drop, that shoe to drop, and always waiting, because I was expecting it, because I was like, well, nobody wants me anyway, you know what I mean? Kind of attitude. And, and it is painful, when I got into recovery and I finally realized that, wow, man, I've been doing life my whole life completely wrong, completely wrong. And I really thought I had it going on. I thought I was doing everything just right. I always had money. I always had clothes. I always had a car, or at least for the most part. I typically always had a house. I mean, I was very functioning in my dysfunction, right?
Yes.
And able to support my family and able to, provide my children with, things that not every child in our neighborhood had, because I was doing all of these, I was putting my life at risk for their sake, kind of thing. And at least that's how I justified it, but the long-term damage that it caused over the years, the issues with bonding and the recognizing what is a healthy boundary. Literally, I would ask my sponsor, bless her soul, what is a healthy boundary? You know what I'm saying? I don't explain to me what a healthy boundary is, because
that's why we have sponsors, sister. We have someone we can trust and we can turn to when we have questions like that come up in our souls.
And not having a network of strong-minded women, healthy strong-minded women.
Yes.
Anywhere near me. I mean, literally, women hated me on site typically, and I'm just like, dude, I don't even know you. What are you talking about? And but it was just who I was in the world.
Yes.
That really created that gap. I didn't have a strong connection with my mother. I didn't have a strong connection with my grandmother. I didn't have a sister to have a strong relationship with. I didn't all I had were the people on the street.
Yes.
Again, not a very healthy environment.
Well, I totally understand
for productivity, right? So again, product of my environment. You know what I'm saying? I got really good at not getting caught. I got really good at playing a role. To this day, I still suffer with imposter syndrome. Yes. I sit here as a case manager in the largest facility in the state of Oregon on a daily basis, and I supervise case managers at 4 different locations in this organization. And I still struggle with how did I get here? How do I do this? How does someone like me get, you know what I'm saying? That imposter syndrome is.
But Lisa, can we both agree at this point that had you not been through those experiences and acquired that wisdom and survived those crisis events in your life, you would not be qualified to be sitting
Absolutely.
where you're
Absolutely not. My lived experience is a PhD times 2, literally.
Absolutely.
With the trafficking and especially in the homeless community, the one thing that I've noticed at a growing rate is the number of people who are coerced with drugs and or money into doing sexual favors, and they don't consider it to be human trafficking, but that is exactly what that is. So
that is what it is in a nutshell.
Yeah. So and being able, I've literally had to, just in that realm, just in the trafficking, sex trafficking, drug trafficking, I did all of it. If it meant money in my pocket and paying the bills, I was in there.
Yes.
So just being able to recognize that just in a conversation with someone, and being able to understand even more so than anyone else. I've stepped over a lot of women to get to that place. Only by the grace of God do I have the capacity, with an 8th grade education and a couple of extra classes in college, and a few certifications. Do I have the mental capacity to even have a conversation with you about these things? You know what I'm saying? It's literally a walking testimony all day long, about the grace of God and the protection of God. And kind of, living today's version of the Bible stories that we see. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, like all of them were, the least expected person who did all these amazing things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And here I am,
Well, I'd like to cut in at this point. I'd like to say something.
Yeah.
Our journeys are not so they're not so dissimilar.
No.
My thing was narcotics. I became an international smuggler at the age of 19, and I spent 15 years working for Mexican drug cartels, not only smuggling, but later became the primary target of Operation Northern Exposure in the Pacific Northwest. What it is, and that's why I kept making that remark to you about familiarity, because we stay with that which we're familiar with until something greater than us, Lisa, comes in. Mine came October 19th, 1994 at 3:30 in the afternoon. Just sentenced 8 years in federal prison. I was in a holding cell, dropped down to my knees. I said, Jesus, I just can't take any more of this. I can't do it. And in that instant, 2 fellow inmates came in, knelt down on each side of me, put a hand on my shoulder, and prayed me through it. And by the time the prayer was done, Lisa, I was the new creation, and it was through Christ that I did it. And
Amen.
I hear the faith in your voice, and I see it in the witnessing of what you do today with what you have survived. And yeah, we can't do it on our own, my friend.
No.
We can't. And we need a higher, something higher than us that we truly believe and truly trust in. And that's where self-esteem starts getting rebuilt. That's where direction starts formulating. That's when we recognize that we do have worth in this world, and we can take from our past experiences and hopefully educate and process other people into the direction that fortunately you and I have found years ago.
Yeah. So, amen. Yeah, exactly. And I got to the point literally where I was contemplating jumping off. I was trying to figure out how I could do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, do I need to jump off a building? Do I need to jump in front of the max? Do I wish for a serial killer? I mean, like, and considering the fact that I've met many of them along my way, you know what I'm saying? And by the grace of God alone, am I able to sit here and talk to you literally? I've purposely tried to catch people that were found to have murdered multiple women in areas that I've been in, and and things like that. Like it's just it blows my mind the amount of protection. In before I could finish a thought, God help, literally something would happen. Like literally and our thoughts are the speed of light, so it's like literally within a blink of an eye. So
I do get it. I do.
And if thank God I fell in love with Jesus Christ at like 4. You know what I'm saying? I literally, and the story of Mary Magdalene has always been my favorite story. And it's very, I used to say ironic, but I know now it's divine. It's divine timing.
Yes, it is, Lisa.
That's all kind of divine, and I'm spiritually connected on a level that a lot of people don't understand. And so I've always known there was something different about me, whether it was good or bad, there was always something different.
Yeah.
And today I get to live that. I get to walk that out. I get to be the example of, wow, she really turned her life around, or, wow, she's really doing it. I mean, I have some of my ex-dealers that every now and then they'll hit me up on Facebook or something. Hey, you still clean? Yep, absolutely. You know what I mean?
Even they are proud of you. They know. They know.
Yeah, good job. You're strong. I don't know any girls that are that strong. And I'm like, hey, I'm just doing me. You know what I'm saying?
And not only that, Lisa, but you're not judging them.
No,
you accept them. No. You understand them. You've lived it. You've been there. You've done that. But you've just done something a little bit bigger. Yeah. I'd like to talk a little bit today, if we could, about just exactly some of the programs that you're involved with, what you're doing. This year, you're in administration. This particular place that you're working at right now. Yeah. But I also know that you have discussions with women that are struggling and going through things. Can you share that?
Men, women, LGBTQIA families, pretty much we serve a large number of individuals here at my location and throughout the organization. So yeah, I basically meet with people and I share a little bit, appropriately my backstory, giving them just an idea of who's sitting in front of them across the desk, and then invite them to hey, what brings you here? How can I help you? And kind of, and then we build out a plan of action that they decide, just out of what they share with me. I usually pick out some goals that I know that they've already told me that they're working on. And then we also have program requirements. And then I just, we're kind of like the bumpers on the road, like the guardrails along the path that they've chosen for themselves. And then we help with housing, we help with jobs, we help, we self-improvement classes, Everyone is required to do a certain amount of volunteer tasks, either at our organization in the facility or at other organizations. Lots of different things. And then I also am working with the Homeless Services Department, formerly JOHS. I am on their advisory board for their budgetary advisory board. That is a new role, voluntary role that I am taking on, which really gives me a lot of education, as you know, like, because my end game, of course, is Little Sisters Foundation, which fights against trafficking and domestic violence, which I'm currently the CEO and chairwoman, as well as the Bullier House. The Bullier House is an organization that I founded, and will eventually. My big picture is, my long game is a global organization that creates safe houses for persons, anyone that has survived or is experiencing trafficking or domestic violence.
Bravo.
Yes, that I got to start somewhere, right? And so the role that I currently work in every day is just another step in that path. Like every single day that I suit up and show up is taking me to where I want to go. I'm also certified in anti-trafficking prevention, so that I can teach education, teach communities and educate schools, hotels, whatever that looks like. Anywhere.
I remember when you got certified in that, Lisa.
Yeah,
yeah,
I can teach that anywhere in the world, right? I am also a human rights education person, a consultant. As a homeless person for 10 years in the streets of Portland, Oregon, I realized right away that human rights are being violated on a continuous basis, on a daily basis, in many different ways by many different types of people. Not always by police departments or government officials, but I mean, mailmen, stuff like that. I mean, I witnessed a lot of stuff. And then I'm also a certified recovery mentor and peer support specialist in adult addictions. And I'm currently working on a mediation course and a trauma-informed masterclass. It's just kind of in my spare time.
Yeah. I'm so proud of you, Lisa. Yeah, I've known you for years, and to see this journey and watch the development, and every one of these certifications that you're telling my audience about, I have seen those certificates, and that is your PhD.
Some of them on my wall right here.
That is your PhD. That is it.
Yeah.
With your life skills and your ability to communicate, look at how well we talk and have frank discussion. And these are very important things when people are coming to you and they're shattered and their self-esteem is all the way on the ground and they don't know which way to go, but they know they need to go a better way than the way they're going right now. And that is where people like us come into play. It's so significantly important to show them success coming from the same ruins that we once lived in our time.
Yeah.
So I just so strongly commend it for it. And I'm really glad that you're working with those foundations, especially the trafficking foundations. And I think there's a lady back in Florida that's getting ready to start up something. Didn't I connect you with her?
I think so. And then I did reach out, and I know that there was a little bit of communication back and forth, but nothing really came to.
Yeah, she's still building the foundation to let you know.
And that's okay. And that's okay.
Yeah, she was very excited to be introduced to you by me.
Yeah. And by the grace of God, and just, my, just me as a human being, my energy tends to draw people in. And so wherever, whenever I'm on Facebook or whenever I, add myself to join another group or a recovery community or whatever that is, people are always kind of like, well, who's this? Let's find out who that is. So
exactly.
And that's why I really like, being in a room like this, or being in like the Department of Homeless Services here in Multnomah County, just being in the room.
Yeah, we need
access to the people that I need in my life that can help me reach the goals that I have, and have an impact as far and wide as the ocean itself, and even if I don't live long enough to see that happen, I know that I have set the ball in motion. And,
exactly.
The generational traumas and the generational curses and the buck stopped with me. When I had my children, I made a very conscious contract with myself and God and the mirror. Is like, this stops with me.
How are your kids doing today? How are their lives?
So still working on my oldest.
Okay.
it is again a product of her environment. And
I have
13-year-olds.
I have a son struggling with addiction. I get it.
Yeah. So it's, fruit does not fall far from the tree, and
No.
unfortunately, ours was planted in some rocky soil. So, but I still believe in the power of prayer, and I know God is still in the miracle business. And so, I have prayed for decades for their protection when I was not available to do that for them. And then I have an older son that still has a lot to be angry at and is still in his healing process. And so, there's not a lot of communication there. But through the grace of my other children, my two younger children, Adriana and Elijah, I do have communication with them. And so, their messages go back and forth between them all. You know what I mean? And then I have my two amazing grandchildren that I get to. My daughters seem to be way more forgiving than my sons. Go figure. Yeah. We're kind of wired that way, just genetically, right? Yeah. So, there's a little more communication with the women in my family, which is something that I've always craved and that I've always been denied. So I find it beautiful. I, in fact, have a goddaughter who also has 5 children, and her daughter. We're all 3 in recovery, and so for me, just being who I am in the world has an impact that I didn't even know was happening. Even in my addiction, I had an impact. And so in my recovery, it's even more obvious, and it's beautiful to me. And it literally blows my mind. And I am looking forward to the day that I can reach out. I've been connecting recently with a lot of churches of any denomination that might be welcoming to someone, who can stand on their pulpit and say, or stage, or even in a room, a prayer room, and say, hey, I'm a trafficking survivor. You know what I'm saying? So, you know what I mean? And
I do. I'm a pastor. I was a senior pastor of my own church for years. And I'll tell you something, Lisa, and I used to welcome wholeheartedly people like us that could come up and stand up and be the example and show others that are still in that lost point of their life that, listen, you're not going to stay lost forever. No. But you do have to find a foundation within your life, in your structure somewhere that you can fall back on, rely upon, and most importantly, trust. And that is when growth develops in the right way. Yeah.
The antidote to almost every human suffering is connection. You know what I'm saying? And the less we connect, organically, the less healing we're going to see. And gosh, there was another point I wanted to make, and I can't remember what it is now. Darn it.
It'll come to you, my friend.
Yeah. But I look back, I look back to, like my days in Sunday school prior to any traumatic events, prior to me, having the knowledge of good and evil, say, for instance, you know what I'm saying? It was the poetry, the love I had, the story that really intrigued me the most was when she cried enough tears to wash Jesus's feet and then had dried them. That for me, that scene has stuck in my head my entire life. Just
while others were standing there and scorning her and asking Christ, why would he allow this prostitute to touch his feet?
Exactly.
And, it's a beautiful story. I absolutely love that too.
Absolutely. And I have that conversation in not the same type of context, but I have that conversation all the time with people. It's like, hey, you know what? If I'm good enough for Jesus, that's all I need. That's really all I need, So, and I write poetry about that stuff today. I have 37 poems that I plan to make into ebooks.
Our last conversation, you were working in that direction. How's that going?
So it is a matter of time. I don't have, on my weekends, I really want to just do nothing. And that's that's another barrier that I need.
That's a recovery, actually.
It is. I think the universe is asking me to rest because they know that in the future, I'm not going to have much time to
you and that cat.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Once my vision really begins to grow, begins to blossom, I should say, because it's already growing. But once my vision begins to blossom, I won't have 10 seconds. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to wish I had a whole weekend to spend in my bed alone with my cat watching movies or whatever that looks like. You know what I'm saying? I know that because this is a worldwide problem.
It is.
And it's been going on since the dawn of time, right? So, and it just keeps getting worse. So, I know.
Have you ever seen that movie that recently released from Angel Studios called The Sound of Freedom?
I don't think so.
It's about human sex trafficking children down in Central America, and
Oh,
it shows an agent. It's based on a true life story of an agent that literally right before retirement walked away from his whole career and everything to seek out these children and bring it into fruition. Remember, The Sound of Freedom,
sound
Angel
of
Studios, honey, you've got to watch that show. It is absolutely it impacted me, and I've been around some. I've seen human trafficking down in those countries when I was, working for the cartels. I've
yeah.
looked down the hallways and seen rooms full of kids, and breaks my heart to this day because it doesn't leave you when you have seen or been around such atrocities.
No,
But
absolutely, it will haunt your soul for eternity. Yes.
it does. It does. I never had any involvement in it myself, but I was down there picking up loads, getting cars packed, and noticing those kind of things, and it's just horrifying. But The Sound of Freedom, I can't stress it enough, Lisa. You need to watch that.
I will absolutely. I've already
Yeah.
jotted that down.
Thank,
I will
yeah,
put that
thank
on
you.
my must-watch list.
And then we'll text each other. I want to hear your comments, my friend.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Well, listen, we're ready to wrap up here. I'd like to know if there's anything else that you feel that you should put out to the audience, a statement of encouragement, if you will, because I've known you for years, Lisa, and you are just the perfect example of people like ourselves where we took all of that suffering, but the wisdom of it. And now today we serve. I'm in my 21st year of serving homeless vets, homeless communities. I have overdose cases dropped off on my porch a few times a year where I have Narcan kits provided by the VA for them. Everybody knows you can go to pastor's house and he's never going to say anything.
Yeah.
And they come here instead of hospitals because they have felony warrants and they don't want to get put in custody and go dope sick. Well, it's not my it's not my job to judge that. It's my job to serve that. And you are in the same forum that I'm in, and I just absolutely am so grateful. So, share some encouragement before we close here, honey.
So I would have to strongly suggest if you see something, say something. If you are afraid to reach out to immediate family or friends, reach out to a school, reach out to, a counselor, a coworker, reach out to littlesisters.org. It's a little hard to Google because it was originally an out of the country organization. But I'm starting from the ground up here in the United States.
I knew you were. I remember you're getting that fired up. How's that going? Are you getting established yet?
You know what? We are still working on some fine tuning, and of course, funding is always an issue. Funding is always an issue. Working on a grant writer, working with grant writers, and I am also hoping that one day with the organization I'm currently working at, possibly being able to graft a branch that can help kind of catapult that, and that's all. There's just. I never know what the room is going to have for me when I enter in, but I always enter the room knowing God put me there for a reason, right?
Absolutely right.
I just wait and I watch and I learn and I, and I share and I know that when the time is right, He'll tell me to move and I'll move. Right.
Well, listen, Lisa, thank you for this positive conversation. Yeah. Thank you for being the wonderful, beautiful example that you truly are.
Thank you.
Someone that I love and care for and admire deeply. I respect you as a professional. Without reservation. I've watched you grow. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the righteous example of how people like Lisa and I can come up from the ashes of hell that we put ourselves into and can take that wisdom today and serve the multitudes.
Absolutely.
Lisa, I love you. God bless you.
Love you too.
You have a safe drive home tonight, honey.
Yes.
And thanks again for coming on the show. Proud. Okay, folks. Well, that wraps up another episode today. And I'd like to take this moment to thank each and every one of you for taking your time to catch our show. Now, if you like these shows, I would ask that you would please hit like, share, and subscribe. It's so important to us that we get these messages out, and we understand that these are graphic, almost toxic interviews. But, this is the kind of impact that we feel is needed in order to make sure that people understand the significance of the problems that we are confronted within our own country and around the globe. So I'm going to say at this time that I love you all. God bless you all. Hasta luego, y vaya con Dios, and go Victors.